Hello, everyone out there. This is Hiley with the May 14th edition of the Credit Conversations Q&A, a weekly webinar where we talk about all things credit. Today, I'm going to talk about the personal information section on the credit report. And by that, that's the top part on the credit report. That's the section with our names. That's the section with our addresses and with our employers. Now, a lot of folks out there in the webosphere, they talk about, oftentimes talk about all the things that we do to try to move the needle and bump our score. Things like, they say, removing inquiries, removing different things there to get 5 points there, 15 points there. Now, while those things are important to monitor and manage in terms of managing your score, a lot of people overlook the personal information sections because they don't think that there's anything relevant there to boosting the score. But before I talk about that, I just wanted to say, it was a tough go for the Cavs. Those are my guys. I didn't think the Pacers were going to give them that much trouble, but I know with all the injuries, it's unfortunate that they couldn't get past that series. But that's okay. We'll get them next year, right? So I just wanted to say, shout out to them. Still, they gave us a good season. They gave us a good postseason. So it's disappointing, but hey, they made it further than the Lakers, right? I know y'all got some Laker fans out there, but of course, our Cavs fans definitely are not boo-hooing for the Lakers. Okay. And just so you guys know, as you guys who are going to see the replay on this later, not a lot of participants here live. But I wanted that live experience because I wanted people to be able to come on and ask questions pertaining to what they got going on their credit specifically. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to your credit, it's not just a matter of whether you got bad credit or okay credit. The way I look at it is if you got 400 scores, you want to get to 5 or 6. Obviously, you want to get to over 6. If you got 500 scores, of course, you want to go to over 6. But even if you got 600 scores, why not have 7? And if you got 700 scores, why not go for the high 7s, maybe even 800 score? Although it takes a long time. It takes quite a bit to get to 800. But guess what? It doesn't matter. If you're at least 800, 680 to 690, if you're over 700, 720s, you can do most just about anything. And if you're at 740 or higher, you're as good as gold. You can do just about anything you can do at 740 that you can do at 800. So keep in mind, it's not always a matter of whether you got bad credit that you need to do something. If your credit is bad, then you want to make it fair and excellent. If your credit is bad, work to get to excellent. If your credit is fair, let's work to get it to excellent. And if your credit score is good, let's go for excellent. The highest is the better, because again, at the end of the day, the higher your score, usually the better rates you're going to get on any loans that you take out. You're going to get better terms. A lot of times when you're over 700, in most cases, you don't even have to put down money. With automobile lending, you can get just about any credit cards you want. And if you got the income, you'll get ample limits. You'll get the best credit rates you can get, at least for credit cards. But not only that, you'll qualify for the cards that come with the intangible benefits, things like the mileage and the points, and the cards where you can have access to the luxury lounges in the in the airport terminals when you're traveling. You can use you can get the cars that give you double points on airline miles and things like that. And you can use those points for upgrades. So you can go from In many cases, if you get enough points, you might be able to get first class. But if not first class, many airlines now have a level that's between coach and first class. Like in the case of Delta, I like Delta, and Delta has the Comfort Plus. I call it first class plus, or first class baby, I should say, but it's called Comfort Plus. But so keep in mind that credit is one of those things that you don't have to be toe up from the floor up to have to worry about your credit. Credit should be something you manage just like you manage your other finances. The better you manage it and the better you maintain it, you can enjoy a lot of other things with it other than just having the capacity to spend more money on material items. But again, tonight I want to talk about, first I want to talk about name variations and why does that matter? Now, keep in mind that, removing incorrect name variations from your credit report is crucial for several reasons. First of all, it helps to prevent fraud and identity theft, and it ensures that your credit score is not negatively impacted, and it protects you from issues when applying for loans and credit and also for insurance. Let me go further into that. First and foremost, fraud and identity theft. Incorrect name variations actually make it easier for criminals to misuse your identity for fraudulent activities. When you clean up your credit report and don't have all these name variations, sometimes it's spelling, sometimes it's a merger of first and last name, things like that. Sometimes it's a reversal depending on what your name is, where it's saying it's a last name first name last type situation. But it's important that you have a clean credit report with accurate information, which makes it harder for credit fraud criminals to take advantage of these confusing variations. Because if it's confusing to the credit bureau, it's confusing to creditors, that confusion can also be exploited and not to your favor. Especially if you have first names that can be last names and vice versa. So it's important that you clean that up, and that helps. That can help with that, not having to provide explanations. In the mortgage business, when we see things like that, we always, as underwriters, we always ask questions about discrepancies. So we like it when the reports are clean and everything makes sense. I mean, it can also help you with your credit score, because you'll have a more accurate credit score, because errors like the name variations can sometimes lead to things like mixed files, where your credit history is mistakenly combined with somebody else's. This right here, I personally had myself, but it wasn't so much of a name variation. It was that my name was being mixed up with someone else who had a very similar name, and some of my information was being mixed up with theirs, and it created a lot of discrepancies. This happened to me back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it affected my credit score, and it took me a long time to get that cleaned up. That was before the days of credit monitoring as we know it today. And you barely had enough time. Back then they were just starting to come up with time where the only way you could communicate with the credit bureaus was by mail. And that was with, you sending them a letter, you didn't have any way to check, and you had to wait for a response, much like today, but there weren't many rules in place that compelled them to answer in any timely way. It took me about 4 years of back and forth with them to get responses for them, because there weren't guidelines like 30-day to 45-day turnaround and things like that. So I can tell you from personal experience that happened because my credit score went from mid sixes to high fives when it started merging my information with someone else's, and the accounts were not in the greatest standing. There were issues, and so it did negatively impact my credit score, and it made it harder for me to get a second when I was looking to buy a second rental property at that time. And my mortgage, and to get the mortgage, my credit score was much worse than it was the first time, and it created some problems there. So another reason that it's important to do that is to protect your financial interests. Now, the accurate information on your credit report is essential for getting the best possible loan terms and for securing financial products, even like insurance. A lot of folks don't realize that the insurance rates that you pay, whether automobile, if you're homeowner's insurance, any type of loans, your credit scores have an impact on, with some insurance companies, it'll impact whether they even will be willing to insure you. Very few cases where they won't, but for general things like automobile insurance, but they will insure you, and with homeowners insurance too. They will insure you, but you tend to pay higher rates. I read a survey among insurance companies that typically a person with a credit score of 580 or less will generally pay double what a person with a 680 or 780 or 700 score, what they would pay for similar insurance coverage. Yep, and you heard me, a double. I mean, literally double, because they look at that person with bad credit as a bad risk. In turn, insurance is all about risk, so they look at you as a bad risk just based on statistics. Not saying you're a bad person or you're a horrible person, but they said people with those kind of attributes that they see among people with credit scores in the 500s and 400s, they look at them as being higher risk of filing claims that are going to cost them money down the road. So it does have a huge impact. Another reason why, even if you got 620, you should try to get to a 720, because it's a big difference. So even you'll pay less on insurance, as well as paying less on interest rates and other things like that we all generally associate with that. So I was looking here, and as I'm recording this, I was hoping some more people would drop on. I still don't have any people coming on, but that's okay. I'm going to continue on. And later on, you folks who may watch the replay can enjoy the benefits of this. But again, I think it's important, that Q&A section, I'm hoping to get some people come on so that we can do that. But that's okay. We're going to keep going. Now, it's important, just like with the other credit items on your credit report, that we dispute these errors. We see the crazy name variations that are not us, the wonky, the missed, and a lot of those errors come from different applications where whoever filled it out, they typed the name wrong or whatever. And sometimes, even if it's on an inquiry, sometimes it's on an actual loan, and people don't pay attention to that. And so after a while, you can see an accumulation of name variations across not just TransUnion, but Equifax and Experian as well. And then you can even have name variations among different across the three bureaus, and not necessarily even be the same on the individual ones. But that's okay. If you notice a name variation, you should dispute it with the credit reporting agency and get it corrected. Now, I am an advocate of credit monitoring. I think it's important. Whether you use annualcreditreport.com, which is now providing weekly online credit availability of your account. Now, keep in mind, there's no scores involved. But folks, I want to tell you, when it comes to credit monitoring, don't just pay attention to the score. Pay attention to the information. What you want to be monitoring is the information on your account. Now, because basically what happens is any changes in the information on your account, that's what's going to lead to the change in score. The scores don't just change magically without any reason. The scores are based on the information on the report. When negative items come on, they tend to bring your score down. When negative items go off, your score goes up. When positive information comes on, it tends to raise your score. But usually if positive things go off or change to negative, your score will go up. And so it's important that we understand that the information is what you want to monitor, not the score. Don't just get your new updated report, look at your score and say it went up or down or didn't move. And you say, okay. Or importantly, not just with Credit Karma, but with all the credit monitoring, they have the summaries. They have things like Smart Credit, like to use Score Tracker and Score Booster to try to tell you what things you should pay attention to try to boost your score. Credit Karma has their summary as well. But the thing is, the problem with that is if you only look at that, you're only focusing on what they want to. There are other things that are on there that are just as important that the summary may not discuss. Now, next in future, we're going to talk about reading the credit report. We're going to talk about reading the accounts and understanding what's important, why it's important, and how it makes up your score in terms of actual items, not that percentage, the pie chart percentage about timely payments, credit utilizations, but actual items on the report that you want to pay attention to that could be having an impact on your score if you don't pay attention to it. So again, at the end of the day, the goal is to remove incorrect and outdated addresses as well. Incorrect and outdated incorrect name variations. And again, even with things like married names, if you go from maiden name, for ladies, you go from maiden name to married name. If you got a variation where you may show your maiden name, but you now only use the married name, or vice versa, whatever which name that you are legally holding yourself out to, even if it's a previous maiden name or previous married name, the one that you are currently using should be the only one, and you should clean everything up. So how do you do that? Now, of course, you go to the 3 credit bureaus. They each have a website. Many of you probably know that, and they're real easy. TransUnion is transunion.com. Experian is experian.com. Equifax is equifax.com. Now, with these types of things, it's quick and easy to go ahead and go to the website and do a dispute and tell them that what your legal name is, and tell them in the explanation, say, this is my only name variation spelling of my name. Please remove any and all variations that do not match my legal name. And you can do that on each of the 3 sites, real easy. And then they'll clean that up. And it's real easy. I was going to put it in the chat, but I don't know. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes, or I'll put it in the comment section so that you guys can have that information and be able to do that. But again, it's pretty much that simple. So that's an easy way to do that. Okay. Aside from the name variations, it's important that we remove incorrect or outdated addresses from our credit reports. It is important to do this because you can avoid potential issues like loan denials, identity theft, like I was talking about at the beginning, and confusion for the lenders, like I mentioned in the beginning. This is especially true in the mortgage space. When we're trying to apply for a mortgage, underwriters, we do not like inconsistencies. we do, and then we question, we ask for letters of explanation for inconsistencies. However, that holds up your underwriting time, that and the time it takes for you to get a loan. It could eventually derail it. But more importantly, it's a time-consuming process, because every time you got to explain all these crazy, wonky things showing up on your credit, people have to take time to sink in on that, make it make sense, and then make a decision. So by doing that, by removing all of that and just having your current address, and then you may have a previous address, but when the reports sometimes show 3, 4, 5 addresses going back 20 years, a place where you stay, even your parents' address sometimes, it's best to have them clean up all of that. And the only thing they should be showing is your current address and possibly your previous address. And that would help go a long ways toward helping that. Now, why is that so crucial? Like I said, the first thing, it can lead to loan denials, because mismatched addresses can flag your application as suspicious. Don't mean that they're necessarily saying you're criminal, but it's suspicious, and it could lead to loan denials, especially when that address is associated with some kind of account of yours that went belly up with suspicion. Maybe it was something that was fraudulent. So they don't know if you were involved in the fraud or were you merely the victim of the fraud. It's just a consideration that's always taken in the loan decision process. Identity theft. Of course, an old address on your credit report might be a clue for identity thieves to potentially lead them to open accounts in your name. And if they got one of these wonky name variations and one of your old addresses, they can use that, and they take that old address and then they'll create a fake file using your identity with one of those old addresses as a current address, even though you don't live there anymore. But if the old address is showing up on your legitimate report, and then they clone that and they use that old address as a current address, it's a way to confuse a lot of folks, and it helps them in their job of stealing your identity. So let's wipe all that away. Nothing for them to bite onto. Of course, it could be bona fide confusion and errors. Inaccurate addresses, like I said before, that information can cause confusion for lenders and creditors trying to make loan decisions. And then with that confusion, it's potentially delaying or hindering your ability to get your loan or credit card or any other financial transaction, including insurance coverage, insurance policies, automobile, home, other and business insurance, especially for those of you who are looking to open up businesses. These create problems when you're getting licensing and regulatory hurdles that you're trying to get by. This kind of confusion makes it hard for everybody. Now, of course, you want an accurate credit history, because that's the major part to get towards getting you that sweet spot in the credit score world. Yes, score is a gatekeeper, but remember, we don't make sure that people focusing on score, that the tail is wagging the dog. Make no mistake, the credit report is the dog. The score is the tail. So remember that, okay? And keep in mind that by maintaining that accurate report, people can look at your report, including address and things like that, because zip codes come into play. They can really tell and that your report really reflects your true financial situation overall, not just your score, but your financial situation. Credit scores tell a lot about you in terms of how you spend money, where you spend your money. We can tell a lot just by looking at your credit report, who your creditors are versus and where you're spending your money, how you're spending your money. So those things are important. That's all information. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself in terms of the credit part. And of course, again, this goes a long ways towards helping to avoid the chance of becoming an identity theft victim. Okay. And by having accurate information, it makes it harder for them to actually access your personal information altogether without, having all these crazy name verifications. Because if you got a name variation that's not yours and it's on your credit report, all they got to do is take one of those variation names and get a fake ID made. And they'll say, oh, this is spelled wrong. They say, oh, yeah, sometimes it's wrong on there. If you look at my credit report, you'll see it listed as a name variation. Again, a way for them to exploit that. So at this point is normally where I would ask folks for any questions on what we're talking about so far, but there's no one on. It's just me. So hopefully, if you guys got any questions at this point, feel free to put those questions in the comments section. When you see this on YouTube, you'll be able to see that, and you can put comments there, and then I can reach out to you, or you can email me directly, Haile at creditrenovatorssllc.net. You can send me questions there. You could also send me questions on Facebook. But I'm going to keep going. So protecting your personal information is crucial, obviously. So removing the old addresses reduce the risk of your personal information being accidentally transferred to an old location. See, things like mail, something crucial, even though we're not seeing Social Security card numbers on mail anymore, but other information related to what you're doing personally could go to an old address, which could be someone there who could grab that up and use it against you. So again, another reason to get rid of those old addresses. If any creditors out there do a soft inquiry and they're thinking about offering you something, you want to make sure they don't send something to one of your old addresses. So you want to make sure that you're not getting mail going to any old addresses. That's crucial. So now, again, I'm talking a little bit more about how to request getting this stuff straightened out. Because, of course, you guys, I'm telling you all this stuff about, oh, don't have this, don't have that. So you say, well, what if I got it? How do I get rid of it? So to request the removal of name variations and the outdated addresses from your credit report, the easiest, fastest way to do it is online. The 3 credit bureaus, like I mentioned, they all have websites. They all have a link where you can dispute items, and you can dispute those name variations and the address, the outdated address information online. Is very quick. I mean, you can also do it by mail, some things, but this one's pretty straightforward. So I always recommend this is the easiest way for you to get this cleaned up. Even if you think your credit is good and you say, oh, maybe you're watching this just out of curiosity. You say, oh, my credit's fine. Believe me, clean this up. It will get better. It's the easy way to get better scores. It's not going to be a pop right away, but you will see your scores get better and better as this stuff, things like these things, get removed. Now, you need to file a dispute with each of the bureaus at their website. But I'm just going to give you a general outline of the process. So obviously, you visit the website first. You log in there. If you don't already have a profile, you can create one real quickly to access your credit information with each of the respective bureaus. You want to go to the dispute section, and there'll be a section that relates to disputes of all kinds, not just including the credit accounts, so not just the names and the addresses that we're talking about today, but all of the items. But today, when we talk about the addresses and the names. And so what you can do is, it's a section they have where you can dispute errors. You can ask them to correct information, which is what we're doing here. We don't really need to dispute anything. We're asking for corrections. We're telling them, this is my name, this is my address. Anything that's not this, please take it off. So these are more corrections or change requests. So we got that. Now, if you don't have an account, you got to log in. It's going to prompt you to create an account to dispute these quote unquote disputes or change requests. Okay, and then you initiate the dispute first, and they all have prompts. I'm not going to kind of go through those, but follow the prompts. They make it real easy, and you just follow the prompt that you need for what you're trying to do to start a new quote unquote dispute or change request. Okay, then you want to provide details, like with the name variations. You want to say, hey, my legal name is a first, middle, last name. And you say, hey, any other variations on this legal name, please remove them. Now, if you want to explain any of them, you can. You can say this is my maiden name, and that's now it's my married name. But pretty much, I would put in that detail section for name variations. I wouldn't go into any big explanation about why this name is wrong. As you just say, hey, my legal name is first, middle, last name. Any variation, anything that does not match this is incorrect. Please take it off my credit report. And they will, with very little muss and fuss. And you just tell them it's inaccurate because that ain't me. That's not how my name is spelled. That's how it was never spelled. Now, if it's a case where there's a name variation where you change the name legally for marriage or any other reason, you could explain that. But for the most part, when those variations are due to misspellings, merging of names, and all of that, you just simply say that's not me. Now, if you need to include if you have any documentation that supports that change, by all means, it's easier to provide it at the beginning and you'll get it done right the first time. Again, in those situations where if there's a maiden name on there, you got a married name, you could provide a copy of marriage license saying that was my maiden name and I don't use it anymore. If the misspellings, you can just say, I don't know where they got that from. You don't have any documentation for that. But typically, if you have any documentation, it's always better to give it to them up front. But in these cases, if you don't have any, you don't need any, you just simply say, these are not my names. My name is and has always been this, or this is my married name and I don't use anything else. And so you do that. Now, it's important because this is something that always comes about when I'm helping folks with their credit is tracking the dispute. So in this case, because we're doing it electronically and because you're doing it yourself directly, tracking is really easy. A few days after you submitted that, all you got to do is go log in. That's why they have you create the login. You can check the status. And then eventually they will send you something saying, hey, we got your request. We processed your request. Please note your updates. And of course, when you log in and you look at your file with each of the three, you'll see those name variations go bye-bye. And in the case of the address changes, same thing. You'll see those address variations go bye-bye. And your personal information section is very clean. Now, I didn't touch on it too much, but as you can imagine, with the employer section, same thing. You tend to see current employer, you tend to see all of your previous employers, and they can vary across the bureaus. Again, these things don't really have any really major point impacts, but it's good to clean it up. It eliminates the possibility of identity thieves using old employment. Again, another way to use old information to help them validate a fraudulent identity creation because again, it's like, think of it this way. We all know some of the best lies are the ones that have sprinklings of truth in them. So if the identity thieves can use sprinkles of old, outdated information, names, addresses, employment, to help them use as seeds to create a fraudulent file, let's not give them water for it. Let's clean all that stuff up so there's less chance of them having a toehold on your information. But tracking the dispute is easy. You should be able to do that directly online. Now, with previous names, I do want to note, I mentioned that, like maiden name. If it really was your maiden name, they can have it listed as a previous name as long as they don't have it as a AKA, which is basically a current name. If they have it as a previous name, like a maiden name, that's fine. But in the current section, there should be no AKAs. You should say, my name is this and only this. And then and you don't want, and in the previous name section, you want accurate previous names. You don't want any inaccurate variations in the previous section either. So again, for the current section, you say, hey, my name is this. This is my name is first, middle, last name. I don't go by any other names. No AKAs or anything. And then in the previous section, it could say, my name used to be this at first, middle, last name as maiden name before I got married, something like that. But in the current name, should be no variations, no AKAs, nothing. No FKAs, nothing. In a previous name, it can be an accurate previous AKA or something like that. But it shouldn't be any AKAs. It should only be current name and previous name if that applies. The addresses should only be one current address, and it should be consistent across all three bureaus. And then there should be maybe one, your most recent previous addresses. You don't want to have addresses in there from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, things like that. But if there are misspellings, incorrect names that due to fraud, obviously you can get those off. And you'll need to dispute the name on each report, because obviously each report is separate. So you want to address them across the three. And when updating your legal name, this is important. Make sure to specify that it's your legal name and that this is a legal name correction or change, not just a dispute of the name on the report. You're saying, I want it legally changed, the report changed so that only my legal name is being reflected. It's this, first, middle, last name, nothing else. So those are specific words you want to put in that explanation section that, again, clears up confusion with them as to why you're clearing up confusion on the report. Now, specifics for outdated addresses that you want to keep in mind is that if the old address is associated with any part of your credit, history, you can easily dispute it with the three credit bureaus. Now, here's the kicker. You may need to contact the creditor associated with the old address to update your information with them if this is an active account. Like say it's an account that you had 20 years ago that you started, say it's a credit card that you've had for years. And when you first opened up this credit card, you still live with your parents. You've since then moved out on your own. And you still have that credit card, you want to update your information with them so that they have your current address on file, and then there won't be any problems when you go to clean up those old addresses. So with your creditors, remember, I always say that we should look at our creditors as partners, and that we always want to keep our partners in the know when it comes to what's going on with us. So to maintain good relationship, you should always update your address information and those things with your creditors as they happen so that they always know how to reach you. If your phone number changed, you should go in your account, update your contact information as it changes so they can always have that. Because that's what a lot of people end up with negative issues on their credit because they never knew about them because they moved. And then when things kind of went sideways with that creditor, the creditor had no way of contacting them because they only had the old information. And so then when accounts got bad and letters were sent out and contact notifications were made, they couldn't call you because they didn't have your updated phone number. They didn't have the updated phone number. They could send the letter, but they sent it to the old address. So keep those things current with your current creditors so that everything is consistent. Because believe me, when it comes to credit, when it comes to finance, when it comes to risk, we like consistency. Okay, so you can also provide with the addresses if you need to verify that your current address is such, just like we do in credit repair when we're sending stuff to the creditors. You always want to send in like a utility bill or a bank statement with your financial information blacked out, as we call it, redacted, so that you can prove that this is your current address and none of these other ones that that are showing there. And then that way it's fast and quick and clean that they update that information and you'll be good to go. So now some important considerations that I want to make sure we cover, that I cover with this. The credit bureaus by law have a legal obligation to investigate your dispute. So they can't ignore you. They can't, when you say, I want these things taken off, they can't ignore you. They have to investigate. And if they need to come back to you with and ask for additional information, they would need to do that, but they would have to, if nothing else, investigate it. Of course, you know, if they need that additional information, you want to provide that. Otherwise, they'll say, we close our investigation because we don't have anything else to go on. It's recommended that when you dispute wrong information with both the credit bureau, like I've been saying all along, and the creditor, like I said a minute ago, because if they're reporting outdated addresses, it's because that's what they have in their file. So if you update your information with them, they won't keep reporting outdated information. And then that makes it easier to clean it up. So make sure everybody is on the same page. And then, of course, as you do these things, you want to keep copies of everything that you send to the bureaus. You're going to be sending them copies, not your original. So you should make copies, sending them copies. And again, you can file these disputes by mail, but the online submissions are generally faster, especially for the public information sections, names, address, employers. Now, I put the website addresses for TransUnion, Experian, Equifax in the chat. You might not be able to see it on the replay because I think it doesn't show the chat section. Also, too, I just want to remind you folks that yes, it's great. People get Credit Karma because it's free and all that. But the problem with Credit Karma is, at best, you're only going to see two bureaus, TransUnion and Equifax. Now, it's important in credit monitoring that you monitor all three, so you need to look at Experian. But the beauty of it is at annualcreditreport.com, which I go there. And at first, for a long time, Annual Credit Report was famous in that you can get a free copy of your credit report from each of the three bureaus directly, not through Credit Karma or Smart Credit or any other vendor. You're getting it straight from the horse's mouth, the water right from the well, at no cost, because the government said they have to do it. Now, there are no scores, but guess what? In Credit Monitor, I told you, we don't care about scores right now. Let's focus on the information. And this annualcreditreport.com is going to give you everything going back to your whole history. You don't have to print it out. They'll allow you to get a PDF so you can save it as a file, and then you can just scroll through it. Some folks do print it out, but you don't really have to print it. PDF is fine. Save it for your records. Now, here's what's exciting. Again, it was called annualcreditreport.com because you could only get one report annually. Well, guess what? Now you are able to get free weekly online credit reports from all three bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. And you can have that available to you that way, so you can monitor your credit using annualcreditreport.com in much as you would any other credit monitoring. So that's very exciting. Again, I'm big on credit monitoring, whether you use a paid service, but as long as you're using a reputable service that is giving you access. And the important thing is that you're getting monthly or more current. Like I said, they're giving free weekly access now. And the more common, the better. You just got to make sure you're in the habit of of looking at the report, looking at the personal information, looking at the trade lines, as we call them, the individual accounts. And in the next one, I'm going to talk about the individual accounts and what you want to look for. I'll have a sample report so I can point to you and show you what you want to look for, what's important, and the kind of things that you want to see, that you want to, if you see them, you want to address them. If you don't see them, that's great, because that's what you're going to be looking for on there. So that's all I have for the presentation portion. As there is no one on here to ask me questions, I'm going to leave it at that. And you guys can check this out in a couple of days on the replay. I hope that what I talked about here is helpful to you folks. Again, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to me. If you can check in social media, you can you can see all my contact information. You can go to the website. You can email me. You can DM me in Facebook. You can text me at my cell phone number if you have additional questions or issues. Of course, you can always go to my website and you can request a free consultation from me. Free credit consultation is no charge. And I look at your credit report, come up with a strategy for you, and then offer you, if you want to hire me to help you clean up your credit. But if you want to go it on your own, I have some tools for that, and I have some exciting news about that. I'm going to be launching a new DIY credit report platform. Well, you'll be able to go on and work on your own credit, and be able to do everything electronically and send out letters. And whether you want to mail them or whether you want to generate, I have a way for you to generate letters, and you'll be able to send them through a service. But the idea is that it will have all the tools for you to fix your credit yourself. If you're a credit maverick and you want to do it yourself and you don't want to hire me or anyone else, but you really want to fix your credit, and this is great. I did this because I don't want to just people to be able to fix their credit. If they feel like they can do it more affordably and hire me, great. But if this gives them the information, the tools, and the resources for any of you who want to fix your credit yourself. Now, the platform is free. You'll be able to sign up for free. There'll be no fee for you to fix your credit yourself. You just have to buy the credit monitoring that goes with the platform. And it's the same price as most credit monitorings out there, $29.99 a month. But the service is free and it's no time limit on it. You can work on your credit as long as you want for no monthly fee, only just for the credit monitoring. And you'll learn how to, I'm using AI to help generate the letters. I'm still going to be offering full service credit repair for those who want that, but I'm providing this, and I'll have more details on that between now and next week's webinar. So stay posted for that. At this point, it's on 7:57. And I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Again, please reach out to me if you have any specific questions or general questions, or certainly reach out at creditrenovatorsllc.net and request a free credit consultation. When you submit the form, it will take you to my calendar page where you can pick from available blocks of time to make an appointment. I'm trying to make everything as convenient for you so you can get it done, get that way, and reach out, and I'll reach out to you and get you and take a look at your credit and see what I can do for you. So until next week, we're going to have more credit conversations. And you guys take care, and God bless. I'll see you next week.